So we are going to make sauerkraut this morning. So, by the way, you're shopping for a new iPad. Well, if you find one, please let me know. My name is Stephanie Daudier. I'm a clinical nutritionist, and I help people understand their body messages and heal with food. And today, we're going to learn to make sauerkraut because that's been one of the most requested periscope that I've had so far. So fermented food is something that I put into every one of my client protocol because it has all kinds of health benefits, one of them being probiotic. My God, I'm having a problem this morning. Lord Jesus. So, what you're going to need is very simple. You are going to need a cabbage. Number one thing you're going to need is a cabbage. Does not matter which color cabbage you're using. It's irrelevant. It could be red. It could be green. Sauerkraut is made out of cabbage, but you can do fermented vegetable from almost any vegetable. You can make it out of parsnip. You can make it out of carrots. It doesn't matter. The process of fermenting is what's going to give us the medicinal property of fermented vegetables, is the fermentation part that's going to transform the bacteria from the vegetable into something that will be beneficial to us called a probiotic. So, I've chosen to do sauerkraut because that's the most basic recipe that I can teach you. And thank you for all of those that are sharing. This is going to be very useful to many people. So, first thing we're going to do is peel a couple of layers from the cabbage. And that's going to serve to us later in the process of making our sauerkraut. So I'm just gently peeling 1 to 2 layers, 1 to 2, call them sleeve if you want. So you're very welcome. We're going to learn that this morning. So there's no nice way of doing this. I'm literally just passing my finger on the layer of the cabbage here, trying to peel away. Now, here's a quick infomercial for you on cabbage. The longer that the cabbage is grown, the tighter the leaves are going to be. So the harder they're going to be to peel back. So usually fall cabbage are easier to make sauerkraut because they're not as tightly packed as this. So I just got 2 leaves separated here that I'm going to set aside. Then the next step for me will be I'm going to try to bring down the camera to my level here. Bear with me. I am going to, I'm having issues, but this is live stream, right? So you guys are patient with me while I'm re-hooking up my camera to my tripod so you guys can watch what I'm doing. Okay. So, number one thing we want to do is remove what I call the heart of the cabbage. This is not my day. Apologize for that. Okay. We're going to remove this part here. Okay. How I do that, I will simply cut my cabbage in 2, and I am going to remove this part here in both sides. Why am I doing that? Because that's a bit bitter to me, and that's going to be harder if it's there to actually shred my cabbage. The cabbage will need to be shredded to be able to do the sauerkraut. Now, there is different ways of shredding your cabbage. You can use a grater. You can simply cut it. I'm going to show you how to simply cut it. You could use a grater such as this, or you can use a food processor, right? However you want. The goal is to have tiny pieces of cabbage. We need to expose how the greatest number of part of the cabbage to the actual brine that we're going to make. So you can do a little slice like this, okay? Very tiny slice. Or you could also grate it. So I'm going to show you the difference. So this is going to give you much bigger pieces of sauerkraut. So you're going to have to further cut it when you heat it. Now what you can also do is using your cheese grater, you can simply shred your cabbage. And what that will do is that will give you much smaller pieces of cabbage. Okay? Thank you for the purple heart, whoever is sending me purple heart. You're being so patient with me with all my technical difficulty. So this is what the cheese grater is going to give you. I prefer this to those big pieces. I know. I have grated my finger more time than I can think of. Okay? So you can continue to grate. I am going to use a food processor. So let me move up the camera to show you which blade I'm using in the food processor. More traditional, totally. So this is the blade that I'm going to use. It's called medium shredding. This is what I'm going to use to shred the cabbage right now. So you can watch me. I am going to make a little bit of noise. I apologize for that. Now, to use the food processor, you need to cut it in smaller pieces. And don't put your finger in there. Yes, some extra protein from the skin. Totally. Okay, so. And so much faster. Hi, Lindy. So much faster with the food processor than any other technique. So bear with me while we shred this. And guys, while it's sitting down to ferment for a little bit, I'm going to answer all kinds of questions. So take a piece of paper with your questions, and I'm going to answer them right after. Okay? We have a food processor that's full now, so I'm just going to empty it. I'm going to show you what it gives you in the food processor. So again, much smaller is what I prefer. So my preferred technique to shred my cabbage is 100% the food processor. Faster, much more smaller cut, and a lot less effort on my behalf. So I'm going back at it again. Just a minute. Almost done, guys. Almost done, almost done, almost done. Okay, officially done. So, this is going to go into, I'm going to show you a big stainless steel bowl or a glass bowl. Okay, so I'm going to dump all my shredding cabbage into this in my bowl. Scrape the sides so none of the goodness goes to waste. And then you have a big bowl full of shredded cabbage like this. So my cabbage was about 3 pounds that I had earlier that I bought. I tried to weigh them at the store to see how much weight they have because it has a relationship to the amount of salt you're going to use. Okay, so for salt, for doing your fermented food, there's 2 types of salt we want to use. Either a Celtic salt, which has not been bleached, so it's a mine salt, not bleached, or a Himalayan sea salt. Again, it's not white, it's pink. One of those 2. So you want to make sure that you have a high quality salt that has not been bleached or has not had any chemical processing done. So do not use regular table salt. Please, please, please don't do that. That will be awful. There will be a transfer of those chemicals into your fermentation. So 2 tablespoons of salt per 3 pounds of cabbage. Okay? And you add that to your bowl, 2 tablespoons per 3 pounds of cabbage. That's why, and you just start mixing with your hands. Okay, so literally mixing with your hands. I added the 2 tablespoons of cabbage, and I'm just squeezing the cabbage with my hand. Thank you for all of those that are sharing. And the water is starting to drip already. Let me show you. Closer view. Do you see that the water is starting to drain already out of the cabbage? That's the effect of salt on the cabbage. Salt will extract the water out of the cabbage. Okay? So I've added 2 tablespoons to my bowl of shredded cabbage, freshly shredded, and now I'm just shredding. It will draw the water out of the cabbage. Now here's the trick. You can sit here and massage your cabbage for 10 minutes. Okay? You can do that. And just have both of my hands in the bowl right now, and I'm just squeezing and squeezing and squeezing. Okay? Or if you are at home, what you can do is just add your salt to your cabbage, squeeze your cabbage for about 2 or 3 minutes, and let it sit for about 10 to 15 minutes, and the salt will do its work alone without you squeezing. And that's a friend of mine who taught me that. Her name is Sarah Ramsdam, if anybody know her. If you know her on the scope, please tell me in the comments that you do know her. I took her course called, it's her class fermentation class. And I learned that. And then since then, that's how I've been making my sauerkraut, by just letting it sit with the salt for about 10 minutes without having to squeeze. Okay? But for the purpose of the scope today, I will just keep squeezing because I don't want us to sit here with 10 minutes with nothing to do, and I want to be able to do that in one broadcast. But if I was at home, I would just leave the bowl on the counter for 10 or 15 minutes, and I would come back to it, and the water would have been extracted to it. Does it bruise? I'm not sure what you mean, Lindy, by that. Give me more information. I'll show you what it looks like now. I'm about 4 minutes into squeezing. Okay? And this is what I have right now. See how much water I have? There's a ton of water already in my cabbage. This is what you want. Okay? The water you're extracting from the cabbage is going to become your brine. And the brine is the water and the salt. Together is what's going to ferment your vegetables. So today we're using cabbage to make sauerkraut. However, we could also use just raw vegetable. Do I recommend her course? Absolutely. What the lady in the comment is talking about, sorry I can't see your name because you're too far. She's talking about Sarah Ramsdam fermentation class. So whomever know what I'm talking about, can you put it in the comment, the name of Sarah, so people can Google her? In her class, she teaches how to do fermented vegetable, kombucha, kefir water. So she teaches a lot, so it's a huge investment. Yeah, thank you. That's exactly what it is. So you can watch that, get that as well. If you want to have a blog post or a recipe, hi Cape Cod, you can Google my name. If anybody wants to put that in the comments, Stephanie Daudier /sauerkraut. Okay, and I have a blog post and pictures of what sauerkraut look like. So, here's the thing when you make sauerkraut, your hands are very messy. So, let me show you where we are at right now. Hopefully, do you see how much water I have? This is how much water you have. Okay? There is about a cup of water that's been extracted already from me squeezing. But like I said, you don't have to squeeze. So, let me continue to talk about fermented vegetables. So I said earlier, you don't have to use cabbage. You could use vegetable sticks. You could cut up some carrots, some parsnips, some sweet potato, and just put that in a jar with salted brine. And you would end up, after a few weeks, to have fermented vegetable stick. So it does not have to be sauerkraut if you don't like cabbage. It could be carrots. It could be pickles if you wanted. You can make fermented pickles, which will have a load of probiotic as well. Okay? Now, how do we flavor this? You could ferment this right now. Just add that to a jar, a mason jar. I'll show you how to put the cabbage on top and you would be done. I like mine to have flavor. Okay? So what I'm going to do today is add raisin. So I had some beautiful organic sultana raisin into my sauerkraut, and it's going to add flavor and sugar. When we add sugar to a sauerkraut, it increases the fermentation process. And I'm going to add a shredded, beautiful little apple that I got at the store. With the skin, I am going to use my grater and shred it and add that to my sauerkraut. The taste of that mixture will be absolutely delicious. So if you have kids in your house or you have a partner that is not too keen on fermented vegetables, this recipe will make them change their minds. So I added to my massage shredded cabbage a 1/4 cup of raisin and a small little apple shredded. It is cute. I bought it at Target, if anybody's interested. It shreds and make all kinds of different cuts. Replace a mandolin. Okay? So I'm shredding my beautiful little apple. It's going to add sweetness and increase the probiotic content inside of my sauerkraut. I'm going to show you that at the end. And I'm also adding caraway seed. Okay? About a tablespoon of caraway seed. And I am just going to, so this is what it looks like. I've got a 3-pound cabbage, 1 small little red apple shredded with the peel, raisin, organic raisin, and I'm just going to continue to massage my sauerkraut. Okay? Again, you can get this recipe on my website if you do stephaniedodier/sauerkraut. Can you add sugar instead of raisin? I've never done that. I would recommend not adding anything then. If you don't want to do raisin, that's okay. Maybe add an apple. Maybe add a denser source of carbohydrates, such as maybe a sweet potato. Somebody posted in the community a recipe with parsnip. Could add that, but I wouldn't add any sugar. So, how are we going to put that? A mason jar with the lid is what you're going to need. And then very simply what you're going to do is transfer your mixture that you have into the mason jar. And I'm going to show you what it looks like, okay? I would add more of a fruit than straight sugar, as I said. Okay? We're almost there, guys. Almost there. So, this is what it looks like. And now you need to press it firmly to get the pocket of hair out. Okay? So I'm simply using my hand and pressing the mixture further down into the jar. Now, some people will get fancy and use what we call a pounder, which is a special tool to make sauerkraut that allows you to pack very tightly your jar. I don't have one of those, so I'm making do with my hand, and I've been making sauerkraut for over 3 years like this. Just pressing with my finger down in the jar. Make sure that you have something underneath your jar to gather the juice that's going to come out of the sauerkraut, okay? So what happened now is your sauerkraut is compacted without pockets of air, and that's really important for the fermentation process, that there is no pocket of air at the bottom. Carrot and apple would be amazing. I've done that before. Delicious. Okay, so just keep pressing. And this is where now, do you see my sauerkraut is about to here? And now I'm going to fill the rest up with the remaining of the juice that I have in my pot, okay? This is where your leaf that you've peeled will come handy, okay? So, you will use your top leaves on top of the jar and just insert it inside to help keep the shredded cabbage mixture below the brine or the water line, okay? So you just press with your finger down, and that will keep, you see how the water is rising at the top and the cabbage is staying at the bottom. Okay? That's the purpose leaves that we kept. Okay? So now, I'm pretty much to the rim light. I will not need the extra brine. But let's say you do it and you still have a gap. You use the remaining of your brine, your juice, your water from the cabbage to fill up the container to the top. And then, very simply, you are going to close your jar and leave that on the counter a minimum of a week, an average amount of 4 weeks, up to months. So typically this for me will stay on the counter for 4 to 6 weeks. What will it look like? So I've got a jar that I did on my retreat 2 weeks ago. No in the fridge because it needs to ferment. Only when it's finished fermenting will you put it in the fridge. Okay? Can you see the color difference? This one here has been fermenting for almost 2 weeks. This one is fresh. So this is like a light green color from the cabbage, and this is more of a medium yellow. That is fermented, and that will continue to ferment. Okay? It will. Do I burp it? Yes. So I recommend burping every 2 to 3 days, because what happened, so I got to wash my hand full of cabbage here. What happened here is there's a formation of gas inside of the sauerkraut here. Okay? The process of the salt in the cabbage create gas, which will then create all those good, yummy probiotic inside. Okay? So, you would need to burp this jar. Burping means simply now. Okay? I have not burped this in almost a week. So I have no idea how much gas there is inside. So bear with me. We may have a lot of juice coming out. Okay? So I'm going to try to put it close to the microphone. Did you hear the little psh? And then now the smell is coming off. Okay? And inside of it, can you see the bubble being produced? That's the gas. The gas is coming out, and you can see it on the side here. Because I've released the air, the gas is coming out from the mixture below and it's coming to the top. So yes, I recommend burping every 3 days. However, towards the end of your fermentation, towards the last 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks, you won't need to burp as much because there's not as much gas being produced. So now, after at least a week on the counter, for my case, I will leave it up to 4 to 6 weeks. All you have to do is remove the outer leaf, and you're ready to eat your sauerkraut and your fermented cabbage, loaded with probiotic. Question. What if the top layer discolor or mold? If there is mold, I would recommend to discard at least an inch with that layer. Why would they be mold? It's very simply because the cabbage was not below the water line. If everything is kept below the water line, it's impossible to have mold. So that's why I use the outer leaf. Yeah, I know, the smell is amazing. That's why I use the outer leaf to press the cabbage below the water line, and I refill to the top with the leftover brine from mixing with my hand. So I have never had mold, ever, 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 doing it this way. But if there is, discard it. Any other question, guys? I'm gonna have to redo this with a proper camera again because of my technical difficulty this morning, but at least you got a hint of it. So you can go to my website and type, let me show you for those that just came in. This is my name /sauerkraut, and you will get my blog post on doing sauerkraut, and that's as simple as that. Who thought it was more complicated than this? So many people are scared of making sauerkraut, and it took us, what, a big 10 minutes? Oh, good morning, Aglaé. Yes, it's so much easier. You guys need to go and follow Aglaé. She's one of my peers. She's a registered dietitian, and she works online helping people heal with food. She also has 2 books, so please say hi, everyone, to Aglaé. You can click her little profile there and hit follow. She also has 2 books that will help you digestive health with real food. I think that's the name, Aglaé. Are you? You gotta tell me when it is so I can go and support you. Yeah, so it's scary to do sauerkraut because we've never done it. Anything that we have never done, we tend to be scared of, where in fact it's super simple. 3 pounds of cabbage, 2 tablespoons of salt, squeezing with your hands for 10 minutes or letting it sit for 10 minutes, bottling it into a mason jar, press it with the outer leaf, and leave it on your counter. Done. It's as simple as that. If you were to buy this in the store, you'd probably pay like $10 or $15, and it costed me probably $2.50 to make. That's my website, stephaniedosier.com, and this is my free online community. If you want to come and join me, I help people understand their bodily messages and heal with food, and I've got all kinds of freebies in there. It's totally free. It's on Facebook. It's private. But if you want my sauerkraut recipe, you do my name /sauerkraut. You will get my sauerkraut recipe. So maybe when this is ready in about a month, I will do a taste test with you. If you shred carrot or sweet potato, do you need to massage them? Yes. You need to massage almost any vegetable for a certain period of time to get the juice, the water out, to create that brine, that liquid that goes inside of it here, to make sure there's no mold. You need to squeeze. Now, carrots will take probably maybe only 3 to 4 minutes to squeeze because it's a softer vegetable. Same thing with the sweet potato. where a cabbage, a parsnip will be longer. Yeah, that's actually from Sarah Ramsden. That's where I took this recipe. It's 1 small apple, a 1/4 cup of raisin, and caraway seeds that I use in that recipe. It's going to give it a delicious taste. This one, yes, I will repeat the salt. This one was only made with salt and cabbage. 2 types of salt to use. You want to make sure that your salt is never sparkling white. So my 2 most favorite salt are Celtic salts. That's a salt that was mined, and it's grayish. That's the natural color of salt. Or a pink salt, Himalayan salt, and that's pink. One of the 2 salts. Never ever use a salt that's white, like sparkling white. That's a salt that was bleached. Yes, you can add limes, chilies. I have done sauerkraut with basil. I have done sauerkraut with Italian seasoning. I have done sauerkraut with chilies. If you like a more of a stronger taste, you can use chilies. You can use anything almost to flavor your sauerkraut. I have done one with turmeric and pineapple. That was delicious as well. Celtic salt or Himalayan sea salt. Himalayan. Himalayan sea salt. One of the 2. This is my little small bottle that I carry with me when I travel. One of the 2 salt that you can use. Himalayan salt. Thank you. Yep. Welcome back, Mr. Jimmy. We survived my technical difficulty, and we've made a full jar of raisin and apple with caraway seed sauerkraut. And this is what it's going to look like in about 2 weeks from now. I think we're done.